Hey all, going over a case study here for a pitcher, working to improve hip range of motion, ankle range of motion, working also on some different drills to help with some of his mechanics, to help him improve velocity and to help just clean up some of his movements overall.
Now I'm ready. Let's get 5. How's that? Okay.
So one thing to keep in mind in this assessment is how a static passive range of motion will translate towards a dynamic sort of system, especially when it comes to the context of pitching. Very, very quick movement. So what we're identifying is each specific joint and what kind of items an individual will need to be successful in such a dynamic maneuver. So if we look at pronation, supination at the ankle, if we look at tibial rotation at the tibia, and we look at hip flexion in a supine position, we begin to develop a picture of what the individual will begin to express when they are dynamically moving. So in this case, we are looking at things that we can improve in the left side, which is the back leg that's all going to be on the mound, and compare it to the right side. Some other things to kind of keep in mind are what kind of movement strategies we can begin to utilize on a very simplistic level. And you'll see later on in the video that there are a lot of different movements that we can begin to use because they're not fancy, you don't need that much equipment, and you only need the feedback and the kind of corrections that the individual is giving himself. So we can begin to use the different somatosensory, vestibular, and visual kind of contributions to help feed the system. And we're not really even using visual kind of guided movements. We're just kind of understanding that if we change one thing in the somatosensory system, it'll have changes elsewhere up the chain for other contributions within that system of balance. So if we understand those kind of trifecta, then the whole movement, and especially in something so dynamic like pitching, will be affected. So that's kind of my rationale for this assessment.
Let's do this. Lay on the ground real quick. And I just want to see some really straightforward assessments. So bring your feet straight forward, feet together, one leg up as high as you can. Touch your right foot, yep, left. Okay. How does those feel? Relax, good. Feel fine. Yeah. So I just want to check out your feet, see what you got going on. And actually, I just want to see your hips too. How much you weigh? 210.
205, yeah.
Help you 210. What do you mean your right foot? What do you know about your right foot? Right foot in relation to your left foot? Is that what you're saying?
I meant, yeah, in terms of like, usually your right foot is like.
Where'd you get that from? This is your push off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to point something out to you really straightforward, right? So there's this thing called pronation and supination, but then they also happen in different, how can I say it? That affects a couple different areas. So that it affects what's going on in, this is called your back foot or hind foot, and then you have your forefoot. Both of those together create the things called supination and pronation. So if I'm moving your back heel, it's pronation, supination. And this is what it feels like, right? You can't really see it right now. But if I go over here, that makes sense?
Yeah.
You got a lot more. Does this make sense
A
about
lot
this?
more pronation, yeah.
Yeah. This guy got nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one reason.
Yeah.
If I can bring, if you can bend your one knee up here. Yep. So the other thing is, relax. So this is your ankle,
Yeah.
your tib, fibs, and bones in your body. This is how this rotates. This is how it rotates. So it's rotating in, rotating out. See this? So this left side's pretty locked.
Yeah.
So if I even go to the next level and I say, let's look at this. This is your hip rotation. This is external, not bad. Internal. Okay? See this rhythm? So the goal is not to just get symmetrical, but the goal is to have the ability to produce force and then absorb it too. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. Internal, external. So if anything, I want to get better internal for both, and then get better here too. All right, yeah, get better at everything here. So, no physical complaints about anything, no injuries, no nothing. So let's do something super quick for your foot. So obviously you're here for like the next 20 minutes. That feel different already?
Yeah, I feel like I'm able to already break the arm a little more.
So let's go on our back one more time. I just want to see how your tibia is doing, because we might need to do something there. There you go. Actually, right up here. Relax this. Getting better motion already. We didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to be here. Bring both these up. Super small. So the hard part is you can't really see what's going on. So I'm going to show you. If I'm laying down, I'm going to think of this, my shin bone. I'm going to think of it as moving both inwards and outwards. But I'm not going to lift my foot or toes. So I'm you right now. In, out. Okay. So we're just going to do about 5 in and outs. So just one at a time. So left side, particularly. Yeah. Good. You can move your foot out again. Okay. So bring it down. So you're going to make sure that this stays down. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then in. And then to the right. Good. So I'm going to give you some resistance. Push here. Very, very light resistance. Okay, push this down though. There you go. Now push in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then back in. Do you feel it inside your
Yeah,
calf?
that lights up the arch.
Yeah. Lights up the arch and then also maybe get something inside this.
Yeah.
Good. And then to the right. And to the left. Okay. Now we're going to get the right side too. Just so you feel the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, you move a lot better inside, right?
Going that way feels more.
Yeah, you just have
Like
to
it might cramp up, but
We're just moving more.
that definitely way more. Yeah, low range.
Okay. Alright, relax. So the next thing we're gonna do is have you walk around.
Yeah.
Feel it.
It feels like kind of like just opened up a little
You
bit.
feel a little lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that just like why was it so locked down?
It's your push leg. Right? It's your push leg. Whatever I'm gonna use my right since I'm not doing my left. Whatever you're pushing, just think about it. If I'm going like this a lot, doesn't matter if this is exactly your mechanics. This side is pushing inwards.
Yeah.
So if I'm standing right, I'm gonna lift my leg, ready? It's actually like I'm like this way. So I can't like relax and then move in and out. Like I'm just stuck in a certain position. Right?
Yeah.
So it's something that you do quite often and you're not really thinking about. So let's do this one thing. We're gonna do you know one leg RDL?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a couple different things in terms of this one leg RDL motion, okay? So we're gonna use a stick. You're gonna stand up. You don't need this pad. I'm just gonna off to the side. So you're just gonna mirror me. I'm gonna show you on your right foot. I'm gonna show you on this side. So you're kind of mirroring me. So right now, you go without the stick. I have 50-50 on each leg. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's pretty straightforward. Nothing fancy yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to put 80-20. And then I can even like lift my knee. So I'm gonna think, I can touch the ground. Right now, I'm gonna actually even bring my knee down. So now that my knees are no longer even. So that's the hardest part of this so far. So reset. So even knees, still even knees,
Should I go back?
not even. Yeah, you can move. Just get wherever you need to go. Oh, I want you to do this on the right side first.
So 80-20.
Do you see that?
Yeah. We need that and some lower.
Very much so, right? And then you're gonna feel a lot, maybe here. Okay, so there, take an inhale. Where are you feeling it? Exhale.
Kind of over here.
Good. Good.
Not too.
I'm gonna make you. If I push you away, make sure I cannot do this. Okay. If I push you away, push against me. You feel it right now?
Yeah. Now I feel.
Okay. Now from here, right now we have our stick down. So I want you to put more weight to this, and then nothing in this back foot, and then you're gonna do RDL. Up. How's that?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely feeling the right leg.
Yeah.
Do 3 of those. So this is really what you're doing. You're going boom. So what you're going to focus on this push on this side. So you're relatively straight right here. I want you to round more. Okay, stand up tall. All the way up. Round a little bit. More. Good. Now start. Knee shifts. Okay, down. And then you're going to get this to go down. You feel a little more direct?
Yeah.
Come on. Alright. The other thing we're going to work on is this foot. We're going to make sure our feet are apart, our toes rather apart. And when you do these guys, you're going to make sure that your toes are not like pushing down like this. You're going to be able to get the arch and then relax your toes. That's kind of like a really hard part here. So let's do this. We're going to get pressure on the inside of our inside arch here. So it's going to look like doing this. And then after this, we're going to maintain that. Do you feel pressure on the inside arch?
Yeah.
Get your pinky toe. And watch this. This part of my ankle is going to go that way. So you're going to go.
While you maintain that pressure.
So this part of your foot is going to go. Oh, there you go. That's right. Okay. So now you're going to do all your stuff here. So do one more of that.
And,
Do you feel a lot more?
it's more, yeah.
Unlock the knee just a little bit. And then do it already on. And then come up.
Yeah.
Groin, right? Okay. Let's get the left side, the same concept, and then we're going to work on some other transfer. Arch. Good. So you're going to try to push this away from the stick first. Yeah, that. That makes sense? Okay, stay right there. Push this, pull away, push in toward your, just this hip. There you go, that's cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then come up. Do two more just like that. So this has everything to do with pitching, but nothing to do with pitching. So they're not there yet. I'm trying to just get your body back to normal. Then come on. One more, we're going to really work on our posterior tilt. Yeah. Inhale through your nose. Exhale even before you start. Now go. Yeah, good. Pull this hip inwards. There you go. There it is. All the way. And then stand up tall. Good. Alright. Walk around. How do you feel? Good. Feel a little bit lighter?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, do you feel like a little bit lightheaded or?
Not lightheaded,
Just
but
feel lighter.
yeah, it does. My feet feel like they're coming up, like kind of moving me around each other, which is weird.
Right? And then
Yeah.
so let's go to our back real quick. So just checking these kind of arbitrary motions again. So legs straight to me, feet together. Then bring one leg up. Does that feel good?
Yeah.
Left side. Cool. Alright, relax. Let's just check out these ankles, right? Yeah, you got a ton more motion.
Yeah.
And then obviously the straight leg raise for yourself. So we're going past the 9 if I want to. Let's check out this ER. Or that's IR.
That's, holy shit. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
There's way more, yeah.
I was like, wait, this is ER? No, wait, this is IR.
That's crazy.
ER. So you got a shit ton more motion.
Yeah.
And then this is tibia.
Yeah, that's nuts.
So this is what I was talking about in terms of like good tension there. A little more. Oh, more.
Way more, yeah. Holy, yeah. That's crazy.
Alright, 3 issues on.
Wow, that was wild.
And we didn't really do anything crazy.
Nah.
So that's what I'm talking about. So what I'm gonna do is for you, if you just push into my hand, okay, stay right there. You're gonna think of this part as pushing away from my hand too. Good, there. Now,
Yeah.
now push into my hand. I'll give you resistance. Does that make sense? Keep going.
In this exercise, we are aiming to improve upon the abductor hallucis ability to prevent overpronation and to help improve upon the tarsal tunnel, which has these specific muscles and also nerves to help improve the sensation, along with improve the motor action of these specific muscles. Essentially, we're also trying to improve upon the ability to resist overpronation and essentially improve upon mid-stance within pitching.
Does that make sense? You just do a bigger weight shift for you. And then push down. There you go. Big difference than your last set that you did. Cool. That's really good. So this is your push leg. So we're really working on the ability for you, this is like the other way around. We're not pushing forward, we're pushing, I guess you could say, sinking down. So this is like when you're standing on one leg. So if I can demonstrate real quick. So the thing that you're worried about is your push leg when you're going this way. You're worried about this way.
Yeah.
Push, elevation, all that. So this is the opposite of elevation. We're going downwards. So what we need to do is, does that make sense? So get the same sensation, get the same arch, and you're going to push your head up to the ceiling using that little point. So get that. You can do it on the left or right, doesn't matter, but I'm more worried about the left. Flat shoulder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You feel that muscle right here?
Yeah.
It's just back down though.
While keeping.
Yeah. You should feel like a crap ton here.
Yeah.
You feel that? Good. Now you're just keep getting your head up to the ceiling. So you're pushing up. Yeah, there you go. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the whole point of this, you're moving your whole body weight using only that singular joint, which is incredibly difficult. Yeah, that looks good to me. You feeling that?
Yeah, definitely easier to create that like sensation on the left.
Yeah, you might have practiced it a lot more in your life. But now you have a more open hip, better ability to do it under the left now, because your ankle is better. I'm not worried about it on the right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Throw your shoes on and do a couple throws, or at least. Let's get 3 of them. Let's get one last one. Yeah.
So the things we're trying to improve here are the timing of when he drifts and the timing of when he lands. Because what we're doing in the frontal plane, which is, again, we're working in one plane, is how he leans and falls to the side versus what we see in this error clip, this mistake, is when he puts his leg down on the elevated surface. So keep in mind, what we're trying to do is improve upon how he leans away from his left side. By having him place his right leg, not intentionally, but by accident, what we're doing is he is inappropriately absorbing the force because he's stopping his torso motion, and then you see that there's an inappropriate amount of weight shift from the right leg to the left. What we are trying to do is improve upon how he self-organizes this behavior because he realizes that it's a mistake versus leaning on me and understanding that my correction is going to be his saving grace. In reality, his own coaching and understanding of his corrections is going to help him improve on his own. In this next clip, you can see that his left leg, in this case, is abducting while his whole torso and his leg is leaning together in synchrony, and it lands and it absorbs the force together. In this rocker drill video, we are placing a little bit of height underneath his front leg because we are quote-unquote throwing up a mound. Like for you to understand the things I'm going to tell him next because he's pretty harsh on himself here.
Just be an observer. Don't really judge yourself.
All right, just be an observer to what this replay is because what we're looking at is we are observing some of his older mechanics. We see that foot flip in the back. We don't really fall through the best going over our front leg. We kind of rotate around our front leg instead of following through towards home plate, if that makes sense. So this is something that's going to happen because there needs to be a transfer from the drill that we did earlier to the drill that we're working on now. So we go through a couple more reps telling him to just trust the process, and then we'll go from there. Now we're doing a flat ground where we don't have any height. So by alternating having a little bit of height to no height, and then you'll see later on, we're going to maybe even increase the height of his back leg, you're going to see that he has different mechanics overall. We also went through another set of flat ground after we talked about the video, what he liked, what he didn't like. Something that we did differently here was we discussed the differences in the videos from the beginning and to what we saw very recently. And then now
as you can see, there's a little bit of difference in his mechanics. Something that you'll see here is we have a slight elevation in the back leg now. So we have a small bumper plate with a little bit, maybe 1/3 of an inch on his back leg, and it is simulating throwing from a mound. And we're just getting the transfers, really all we're doing. So we're alternating essentially from elevation to the front, flat ground, and then from the mound. So we're not just doing flat ground. We're going through a lot of different reps, and we're just seeing what he likes, what he doesn't like. I think this one we took out the bumper plate, and we're just using the black mat. So in here we are hopefully simulating what he would eventually do off of a mound.
We're done.
And now you get to see these videos of the initial pitching mechanics and the altered pitching mechanics based off of foot plant. And you see a little bit difference in the directionality where he's throwing off of his back leg, also the front foot, where does he land, and rewind it a couple times to check it out. And now you get to watch the end result here when he threw a couple days later. So this is a super cool video because now it's in slow motion. Obviously it's from the side, so it's not really most advantageous, but what you can see is a little bit difference in how the directionality of his foot plant is, along with how he rotates on top of his front leg going towards home plate instead of just around his front leg. Fun fact for Timmy that he has only topped out at 87 in a game, and it's pretty good for him to top out at 90 off a bump. So this last pitch here is a good example of a lot of the motor control and different strategies that we use to help improve his mechanics because he is reverting back to some of his older mechanics. As you can see, when he lands this second pitch, when he plants his foot, he's actually rotating towards third base in this case because what happens is there's this thing called the tractor wells. Some of these older mechanics are still going to show up, and hopefully over time these new mechanics will be better stabilized. But I'm trying to just give him something new to work with, which was that lateral drift from the get-go. And he still hit a good number here, obviously, so he's just combining everything all together.
Some of the finer details, without using all the esoteric words that I want to cover, involve understanding this lateral motion kind of activity, this drill. So if we can kind of think in the context of pitching, as he begins to drift laterally towards, we'll call it the step because that's what it is, he's drifting towards that elevation. That's more representative of the movement that he'll be doing when he's drifting towards home plate. However, we're only using one plane at a time. So when he, in traditional pitching, an individual pitcher may move towards home plate, they're turning their torso, they're turning their hips towards home plate. So what we want to kind of understand is, what do we need in one plane before we speak about turning? So turning is transverse plane. This is frontal plane. Okay, so from one direction to the next in this way is frontal. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to fix as in freeze and stop motion in his torso, because we're not trying to work on transverse. We're trying to work on frontal plane. So we really want to improve the timing that he has pushing from point A, which is the mound or the bump, to point B, which is his extension, the last piece of his extension. And something that he told me over the phone was his, at the end of it all the drills, and then he went to go throw the next couple days, his extension improved by 3 inches. And that wasn't even my goal. My goal was to make him understand the timing that you need in order to get this motion, because his initial movement patterns involved a knee dive going forward. So this is sagittal plane, and I'm going frontal plane going this way. His knee was going forward, and he was diving into hip flexion, knee flexion, versus just going down to this direction. So with that being said, working on this frontal plane, we didn't even work on transverse plane. There's been a lot of research speaking about shoulder-hip separation. Well, this in essence was simply fixing the torso and then making his torso and the rest of his body move in the frontal plane to get just hip separation. We weren't even working on the contralateral position there to get that torque, that separation. We were just working on, can you drift in this manner without losing your torso position? So can you move in this manner? So that's what that one drill was working on. So some things to cover in this involve understanding what the movement actually covers. The movement covers the frontal plane and how we can work on the shifting of weight along with the timing mechanism involved. Meaning, if we were to do just a lateral lunge, we will have one foot here, and then as we traverse, we go here, and then we begin to move in the posterior kind of fashion as we go into the hip flexion motion of that lateral lunge aspect. However, when we are doing this specific drill, we are staying relatively upright. We are more or less kind of falling, and then we are stopping halfway. So if this is the ground, we're stopping here, and then we are essentially not falling into hip flexion, not torso flexion, but torso is not leaning forward. We're not getting as much posterior kind of movement going backwards. So this is a very different movement than just a lateral lunge because we are working on the very quick motion involved with this lateral motion. I still don't have a name for it yet. But this is essentially the movement that you need in order to understand what it means to move in the frontal plane in relation to timing and movement coupling and joint coupling. The way you can kind of improve upon it is adding a torso rotation as you begin to get closer towards the step. But that's another drill for another time. So building on this, how did we use it? We kind of looked at the video that we recorded, that you're watching, after we recorded it, say, what did you see? What did you like? What did you not like? And this is me asking him. So we kind of picked and choose, and I knew what I was looking for, but that's not going to help him if I say my opinion, because he needs to be able to see it. So there needs to be a level of cognition that he should be able to see as he's performing the movement, so he can kind of reenact it in his head, and he can begin to imbue and embody these sensations. So once he got to a repetition that he really liked, we began to build off of that. And then we began to go into the dry throws and no longer using that step. So, it could have been just something as easy as saying, do this very similarly and feel this like we were using step, except now just do the whole pitch. So it was up to him to kind of like combine the whole shifting of that weight into the pitch. So that was a lot for me to ask him, especially if he'd never done this. So it would have been a completely foreign movement to him, except he's a smart kid. So he knew how to combine these two movements to really get good results at the end of all this. One thing that we did notice is some of the movements towards the end of the session. We did about 60 minutes total. This whole thing took about 40 minutes. The first 20 minutes you watched earlier was doing just like assessment and hip range of motion, one leg RDLs kind of stuff. But the latter half was about 40 minutes of work. So towards this end, we noticed that his movements were kind of reverting to his old movement patterns. This is something you're going to see quite often because some individuals, as you if you're an athlete in question, or other individuals if you're the coach, they're going to revert to their old patterns. So what you kind of need to do is take a step back, accept that they went back to their old patterns, and then say to either them or you or out loud or whoever, and say, okay, what are some ways we can begin to feel the new pattern and kind of blend it with the old pattern. So this is kind of talking about this kind of esoteric phrase, attractor wells or attractor states. It's talking about behavior. So old movement patterns is a behavior. In this case, it's pitching. So in this specific example, his knee would dive forward as he's trying to go laterally. So any motion in the sagittal plane is not really going to help when he wants to go in the frontal plane. I think that kind of makes sense. So what we needed to do was give him the new pattern, aka that step drill, going into the frontal plane, stepping this way instead of forward. So with this being said, he does have a predisposition to go forward again. So we need to kind of go back to the drill, the step drill. We did it 3-4 times, and then we went back to dry throws, and then we went back to the step drill, and then we went back to dry throws. So we had this back and forth of the movement that we wanted, because the step drill, in essence, was not taxing. It's not fatiguing. We kind of understood that this is like it's a half drill, if that makes sense, half activity. You're not putting forth a lot of effort. It's just a sensation. We're chasing a feeling, quite literally. And not a feeling like I feel happy, but a feeling in your body of, this feels effortless. This feels like I'm going in the right direction. Quite literally the frontal plane, the lateral direction, versus the knee dive going forward. So we begin to use this to unlearn this activity. So if there's an attractor well, right, and it's going down this well, this way, it's a very deep well. We need to dig new patterns and then kind of get him to move that pattern until he begins to build a newer pattern after that. So that's kind of a very quick and dirty lesson on changing behavior, at least in this case for motor patterns. So hopefully this was helpful, and give it a shot.